Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. It's time to once again have a look at some new vehicles on the dev server, and this time we're going to have a look at the aviation stuff. Since there isn't a ton of vehicles, we're going to mesh together the airplanes and also the helicopters, just to have a look at the different ones. The poster boy of the update so far is of course the F-111A, the Arvar, which is coming in for America. This thing has a ridiculous bomb load, as you can see. Even right now, it can carry 37 750-pound bombs, plus 12 500-pounders, plus 2 AIM-9B Sidewinders, and just a 20mm with access to 2,000 rounds in the center, which is quite aggressive. It even has access to countermeasures to be able to sort that out as well. Now, it may not be all that it seems when it comes to the Arvar, because there is a few little intricacies that have to be talked about for this vehicle first. First of all, it has access to two J75 P19W Pratt & Whitney engines, giving it a hell of an afterburner thrust so it can move around the place. It also has variably swept wings, and this is where its intricacies kind of begins. So the vehicle itself has this insane bomb load that it can carry, and also has a bunch of different secondary weapons that you can see. But one of the things that has to be noted on this vehicle, if you actually want its wings to sweep, you can't use the outer pylons on it. So instead, you're going to be much more limited to a smaller kind of set if you want to actually use this thing as it's supposed to be more intended. So you basically can only carry along stuff such as this, you know, with, of course, I suppose some more 750s on it, and then also the AIM-9B on it as well. If you actually want the vehicle itself to perform like people want it to, so with the speed and with everything like that, this is more of a loadout you're going to have to bring. Because if you actually bring something like the larger loadouts that I kind of showed off, one of the issues you're going to run into is you cannot sweep the wings. So instead of being able to sweep it, they're just going to be stuck out, meaning that you can't gain the speed that you need to be able to push forward. Now, I'm sure a lot of people are going to kind of try and run this type of loadout to be able to take out as many bases or as many things as possible, but just to kind of show you, you can see the payload wing sweeps blocks the wing sweep controls, so I can't move the wings at all with this loadout. So instead you have to use one which is a little bit smaller in order to gain the speed if you actually want to. So if we go for a little bit of a smaller armament on the vehicle, it should then work. So my feeling is, with a lot of people, this is actually going to be kind of the more preferred loadout, so you can actually go fast instead of, you know, slowly. But here you go. So with only the two inner pylons used, instead of the 4, which is, you know, available, you can actually now be able to drop all of the ordnance and also go fast, and meaning you don't break apart. If you don't sweep the wings and you keep them out with all of the pylons available, what actually happens with the vehicle is it will snap around 1,000 kilometers an hour. So you just can't go fast enough to be able to stay away from a lot of the predators you're going to run into. So instead, what's going to have to be possible is this, and taking a lot less bomb load, even if the bombs do run into each other. No matter what happens though, you can always bring the 20mm and also some Sidewinders on top of the bombs, so you can do a little bit of dogfighting afterwards if you want to use this thing as a bomb truck. So just to kind of give you an idea of some of the issues that the F-111 may have kind of going forward. It does have access to the countermeasures, and also it doesn't just get dumb bombs, it also gets access to a metric ton of rockets. So if you really feel like it, you can just bring along 456 Mighty Mouses, if that is what you feel like doing. At the same time, it does have two pilots. You do have CCIP for the rockets, CCIP and RP for the bombs, and also a radar which has a pulse Doppler attached, and then also it has an RWR attached too. So this thing really does have a lot of absolutely cool stuff. on it. It also has access to a G-suit, of course, and the countermeasure pod. And the other missiles that it has is not just the AIM-9Bs, which you can technically carry 8 of if you want to. You can either have a choice of carrying the 20mm Vulcan, or you can carry the AIM-9Bs. And one of the cool things about this actually is if you have a look at the vehicle, and I'll kind of show you how this works, the vehicle actually holds the AIM-9Bs in a little area underneath. I don't know if we've actually seen that before, where a vehicle has actually held Sidewinders kind of in a bomb bay or in an area before. So there's also that. So yeah, this vehicle can technically be used for a bunch of different roles. I think mainly people are just going to use it as a bomb truck though. Like, I'll be very surprised if it's used for anything else. The AIM-9Bs are nice, but AIM-9Bs at 11.0 are not exactly the best missiles that you want to set up. You can see here the Sidewinders are actually inside of the bomb bay. So if you actually want to fire them, you have to open the bomb bay first to get access to them. Does have a pretty swanky RWR, also has countermeasures, not a ton of them, but enough to be able to get IR missiles off your back, which is probably the main thing that people are going to focus on. And unlike the AIM-9s, which are on the wings, one of the cool things about this is, you can see once we get a lock, is the fact that they have to kind of wait to fire, because they have to drop first and then go. Whereas the other ones, they obviously have to drop, but not as egregiously as the others, which is really cool. So the Aviation is coming in with a lot of cool features, and just to kind of show you, once we line it up, like, it drops and then goes, so it doesn't just straight up run into the bottom there. So pretty nice, and that means that you can bring, you know, if you want to, you can bring a ton of Sidewinders, 8 in total, if you really feel like it. But mainly this thing's just going to be used for bombing, I think, is probably the way to put it. So yeah, that's the F-111. I'm sure many people are looking forward to it. Doesn't have any other camos yet, but I'm sure it will going forward. The next vehicle is the MiG-29G. This is for Germany. It is actually a MiG-29 with a camo of post joining together. Unity, I suppose. It's a post-Unity camo when this vehicle was still used by the German Air Forces, but isn't just for the GDR. The MiG-29G is pretty similar to the SMT. It has access to the Klimov RD-33 Series 2 engines with pretty decent afterburner power, a ton of fuel, and also the NO-19E OEPS radar and IRST. It has all of the general modes that you would want out of it, and also at the same time you have the HMD from the pilot with the CCIP, the EEGS, and also the rocket CCIP, bomb CCIP, and RP as well. So all the standard stuff that you would want from a vehicle like this. The major difference between this and the other German MiG-29 is the simple fact that this MiG-29 has access to the R-73E. The R-73E is exactly the same as the standard R-73, the only difference being it's the export model. Same with the R-27ER1, and then also all of the other fancy missiles that this vehicle will get access to. The ER1, the E7T1, the R1, and the T1 as well. They function exactly the same as the Soviet ones, they just have slightly different names because of the export nature of this vehicle compared to the standard Soviet one. So yeah, just to let you know. Now if you didn't know, this vehicle here actually has access to a pretty cool thing, which a lot, or if not all, of the MiG-29s, maybe just the SMT has access to, which is kind of a targeting thing in the HMD mode. Now unfortunately this thing doesn't have a cockpit, so I can't show you, but just understand it's a circle, and then when you lock on to something with a missile, it tells you you've locked on with a targeting reticle so you can fire it. They're actually adding something similar to the F-16C, which is in the tech tree over here. Now, the F-16C does have head-mounted display, like a few other vehicles that are in the game, and what this means is they're adding some cool stuff. So if you hit Y, and if you hit cockpit and then switch HMD indication, you can see that here they've actually added a bunch of stuff to the head-mounted display. So it isn't connected to the hood, it is actually connected to your helmet. So you can see here all the stuff that's kind of going around, and also at the same time it also has a aiming reticle attached to it, and this looks different depending on what different missiles you're using and stuff. I'm just kind of demonstrating it here with what it looks like for just the standard AIM-9L. You can also see the Tunguska locking onto us here, and then here we go. So if I move with that, you can see that it can fire, and it's pretty cool. It's a cool system. Hopefully they expand it more, because it basically means for simulator players you'll be able to do some crazy stuff, not just from the HUD point of view, but from the HMD too. So yeah, really nice and really cool to see. Super happy with this, and hopefully they just continue to expand these mechanics just to get a little bit closer to real life. Then you got another vehicle. This is a Italian one. Now there are some other helicopters in the files. There's an American one. There's also a few others, including a French one that's sat there, which you'll see later on in some videos. But the one which is kind of sat here and interesting is, of course, this one that you see. It's the new kind of top tier helicopter that exists, and the main difference between it and some of the earlier ones is the armament it gets access to. This is the AH-129D, the good old Mangusta. So the difference between this one and some of the earlier Mangustas, even the ones that have been removed, are what's on the pylons. It does have access to some other stuff too. You got the Rolls-Royce GEM 21004D engines, which are powering this thing. You also have the gunner and the pilot with CCIP, EEGS, CCIP for the rockets and cannons as well, and also NVD, which is quite nice, and really good optics, which shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. The vehicle itself has access to the IRCM, the countermeasures, the thermals, and also the weaponry, which is the most interesting. The PARS on the UHT is not the only air-to-ground kind of fire and forget missile for helicopters nowadays. They have now added the Spike ER to the AH-129D. It's also available on the French vehicle, but once again, the French vehicle is not technically on the dev server right now. There's two modifications, one Spike ER and one Spike ER4. The ER gives 2 of the missiles, the 4 gives, well, guess what, 4. And then also you have access to the Mistrals, which sit around the place too. So this vehicle can bring along 8 of the Spike ER missiles. It can also bring along 4 of the Mistrals to be able to keep it alive. You can technically also bring along these good old cannon or machine guns, which have access to Mighty Mouse rockets underneath, but generally I feel like you're just going to take this load out, because why wouldn't you? So it's got great defense, it's got great offense, and it basically means that you can do some silly stuff with the vehicle. So now, because they've combined the Hungarian and the Italian tech tree for helicopters, it's going to be a little bit harder to grind through this thing. But just to give you an idea, if we change over to this and then just switch MVD mode like this, and then maybe we can have a look here. The thing to show is, let's just say we target. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6, and then of course 7 and 8. And then just to finish off, while all of those missiles are going in, because they are fire and forget, we can also shoot down a good old vehicle there. So that is all of those vehicles dead within a very short amount of time. We have, of course, the Magic, which missed, but that was because of the dodgy angle. But yeah, it's just kind of nuts what this vehicle is able to do in a scenario where it is left alone. It can just annihilate so many different vehicles, which is going to annoy a lot of people. This is kind of the next stage of helicopters that we've discussed for the longest time. When vehicles like this start coming in, not just one vehicle having it in the form of the UHT with the PARS. Instead, you're going to get stuff like this, which is just going to annihilate things. Thank God so far they haven't actually added the true mechanics to this thing, which would actually make it so it could fire pretty much all of them at the same time, I'm pretty sure. Or at least, you know, the PAS missile or the PAS 3 is able to do that. So yeah, it's if this helicopter is left unchecked, there is not a ton that can be done about it. It's just nuts to think about how powerful a missile like this will be, and also its fire and forget nature. You know, a lot of people have talked about its usefulness on the actual battlefield itself on a ground vehicle. Imagine if that ground vehicle is now sat 1,000 kilometers above in the sky. That's pretty much what this is and how effective it's going to be. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Brendan Quinn, Vilneus, Character Fuel, Juan the Panda, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Merciless Reaper, Orange Tail, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Moxie, B. Young, Bareen, Peter Grayling, Alan Hacker, Sem Alslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R, and also Lafouche for supporting the channel.